I think you've all gotten very intimate with in the last 70 minutes.
Should I just like, you can see me?
You could be right here.
Okay, you can see me. Hello, shalom.
Hello, shalom, New York.
Shalom, New York. Look at all these people here who came to be moved and to be touched and to be inspired. So it's a bit interesting because I want to begin by saying that it's a very intimate thing to have a conversation with someone that you've never met before, especially when it's an intimate conversation about intimate things that you have just shared with also many people that you have not met. And so just as you had the courage to tell a story about yourself in a very profound way, I want to thank you for allowing me also, even though I haven't met you, to participate with you in this conversation. So thank you.
Well, I thank you for inviting the film. And I would have been with you, but I'm sorry. So technologies help us to connect it. And I also have with me my guitar. In case you'd like me to sing something.
Yeah, I think we maybe towards the end. Yes, I'm sure. So I would like to begin just to ask you, you know, clearly this is a film that was very important for you to make. And can you speak to us a little bit about why this was an important film for you to put out into the world?
Well, you know, in the beginning, I had no intention to make a film, and it was more to say goodbye to my mother. But since she decided not to go with the doctor diagnosis, and she remained alive for 2 years, I found myself closer to her in Antwerp, in Belgium. And slowly, I made some pictures, stills, and then I filmed. And at one point, I understood that I was living something very special, very tremendous between me and my mother. And I was very happy to have Joël Alexis, my editor, saying, you know, there is maybe a new film about your mother. Because this is the second film about my mother, you know, it's not the first film. Mm. Because the first film I did with her was we had very tense relationship together, very conflictual. So we had to restore our relationship. So I made a first film. And the second film was more just enjoying being with her and discovering who she really is. Mm.
That was something that was very touching for me as I watched the film. I noticed, of course, that there was no context for what seemed to be an incredibly deep rapport that the two of you had. I think one watching it, first of all, it appealed to me, even though it was such a personal story. I wanted to ask you about how it had such a wide appeal. But then secondly, Kiro, it's amazing that you're saying that you had to do a first film to create this kind of rapport, and that holds a hope for me and for others, I imagine, who may not have such an easy chemistry or rapport with our parents. What was remarkable with the two of you was, I think I'll never forget the line that your mother said about caressing being its own language. The lituf hulashon is safa. That lituf is its own, and hands are very powerfully evocative in your film. Over and over again, your mother says that towards the end of the film, what we want is a hand to warm us. A hand to warm us. Yes. So could you speak to these two moments, the intimacy and the depth of this film and how widely it must touch people, and also this redemptive moment that you had a chance to do a second film with rapport and chemistry?
So, you know, the first film, as I told, was just making peace with my mother and accepting her. And she had a son and I had a mother. And I think that, you know, I had to make, like Woody Allen, 15 years of psychoanalysis to take her out of my head. And a lot of group therapy and so on. So and one day I said, Mother, we have to speak together. And she said, well, you could have come and speak whenever you want, and I would have answered your questions. I don't understand why you had to go 15 years in therapy. I said, okay, Mother. And then, And after this restoration, I think she could enter the last part of her life in a much quieter way of living. No more conflicts, no more stress, just being together. And I think that's the incredible thing of the second film, is that I had to learn just to be here and now. No more family business, no more history, no more religion, no more, politics. And it's just two human beings that are spending very intimate, close moments. And they can be very rich. And that was for me an incredible discovery, that to have a rich experience, you don't have always to pass through things that you know from the past. And and in the film, I said, what will you make happy? The answer is now. I'm not looking further. I just be with me here and now, and that makes me happy. And that was a very profound teaching. I discovered in this film that my mother could be a very good movie teacher, and saying, "Oh, I have to make my film," or she can be a very Buddhist teacher, or she can be also a Jewish teacher. So it's incredible. But I think the fact that I learned to listen to her allowed me to discover who she really was and who she really did.
It's so beautiful. No, it answered my question, and I mean, it was so moving. And I think you began the film saying that you wanted to make the film. There was a great scene in the beginning where you said you just wanted to touch people, and your mother went off a riff on emotions and selling it and making. Yes. I think your mother, you brought out, it's amazing. The following you felt to me like, of course, some of the camera angles allowed us to be inside of you, as it were, as you were experiencing, which was, I think, brilliant. And also your own uncertainty as you courageously moved moment to moment following your mother, and even the instructive finger pointing where she would pull you in, and she was directing you in a way in the film, and she was telling you what she wanted. And I just wanted to ask you, so clearly you discovered your mother in a way, and she also discovered you. There were things that came out. Were there things that scared you? I mean, you cried once in the film. How did you maintain that kind of? What was your angle? I mean, you stayed a little bit removed, but you were so in it. And how did that work for you?
Well, I came to my mother with my fears. Maybe my fears about death. And she was like just putting me quiet. In the film, she said, "You don't make a film about death, make a film about life." It's a great teaching, because she said, okay, even if I'm not going to be here in a while, but if I'm here, something incredible can happen. And that's that was for me like a very beautiful present she gave me, without intention of, well, now we are going to give to each other something. It was very spontaneous. It was very fluent. And there were moments I had to stop the camera, just by respect, because she was not so in a good shape. And there were moments the camera was not working, and I said, "Oh my God, she's in such an incredible state. Where's my camera?" And I ran to take the camera, I put it on the tripod, and I ran. So we had all kind of very interesting experience together. But mainly, I think I came with my fears. I came with my fears, and she was just putting me quiet. And it's incredible to see that she was 94 and not being afraid, and still building on the future.
Yeah.
Well, I hope all of us here, and you and me, when we will be 90 years old, we could say we are building something for the future and not
on the past. I'm going to open up for questions. I mean, I get a real sense from you that your fears of your mother's death were lessened. Would that be safe to say that through the process of making this film, and in the end saying that we need to bring death closer and not further away, that your own fears were softened and lessened, diminished. Is that true, Sylvain?
That they were the last one?
Like you're less afraid of her death through this process. You became much less afraid.
I must tell you, less afraid, but I had not the character of my mother. I was not born in Poland, in Lodz, in Belgium. Very slow. We are Belgian people, very slow people. So everything here, in my mind, is going slow. But I'm still dealing with that very important question about, well, what is waiting for me in about 20 years from now, 10 years or 1 year. But I will tell you something. When my mother had a stroke, and she smoked her last cigarette, and she had a stroke. So she had still 4 days to live. I was not in Belgium. So I received a phone call, and I made two things. First of all was to buy a ticket, flight ticket. And the second thing was to go to the computer and to see what Einstein said, a question he was asked. And he was asked this question: what law in physics is going to last forever? And he thought, and he said, I think it's the second law of thermodynamics, which says the amount of energy in the world, in the universe, is a constant. It's always the same. The only thing that changed is the shape. So I said, wait, my mother is going to, well, very soon she's going to pass away. But if Einstein is okay, so her energy must be somewhere, remain somewhere. So with this question, I'm still today thinking about it. Well, my mother is not there, but the quintessence maybe of her personality, of who she was, must be somewhere around me. I don't know, around me, in me. So that's also another philosophical question my mother left me to try to solve, but alone in a way.
Yes. Well,
no, because you're here. So.
Well, we're all here, and there are many people here who were very moved and touched, and also would love to engage you as well and ask some questions. So maybe we'll open it up to anyone who has a question or comment.
Hello, thank you very, very much. I was deeply moved by the film, and it spoke very profoundly to me. So thank you very much for making it and then sharing it. I was curious whether your mom, when she talked about I'm being called, I can feel I'm being called, and you can sense that the times where she's very alive and she has a wonderful sense of humor and spontaneity. And then there were times she was more wistful and thinking and as if she was being called. Did she elaborate any more on that?
Well, you are touching a very interesting point. My mother was a very pragmatic person because she, during the Holocaust, she lost her first husband, the father of my brothers, and she saved the life of my brothers and of other people. And I think she became a very pragmatic person. And in this, at the end of her life, I discovered she could also be a spiritual person. And this moment when she said there is a call, those were few moments where I say, well, I'm living something which is very special. And it's a very spiritual moment. And it's a moment that I had to just, I cried because in a way she was like aware that something is going to change, something is going to end, and there is a call. And so it's in a way poetic, spiritual, but for me it's also being back to the fact that she will have to answer to this call, you see. And I had another two moments like this, but moments that I could not put in the film because they were too family oriented, you see, and I had to respect the fact that I'm the artist in the family who is doing the film, and I have to respect the fact that my brothers didn't want to be in the film, or my family. So, but you are right. Those were very spiritual. And she's not a religion person, because she said, I cannot believe in a God who sent 1.5 million children to the gas chamber. But at the end of her life, she was like a spiritual person. Interesting. Very interesting. Thanks for your mark.
You speak about your mother as being a spiritual person. At the very, very end of your film, she asks a very spiritual, profound question. I think she's asked, what does it mean to be alive? Am I correct with that? I believe so. Did you come to terms with the possible answer to that question? What does it mean to be alive?
Well, for her, at the end of the film, she's saying, I'm alive. I live. I'm alive. Okay? But a little bit before, she looked at me and she said, what are you worrying about? So I'm worrying about, I said, I'm worrying about how to end the life. And then she said, it's not important to do things, to know what to do for 2-3 months. If you want to do things correctly, you have to do it the whole life, which is a very profound sentence. So maybe for her, she was an example like this. She was a very straight person, very, but for her to be, I had my mother as a person which I grew near to her was not a spiritual person. She was very pragmatic. But at the end of her life, I found she was very sensitive, very, very soft, very. It's like the Holocaust made her all energy for survival, and at the end of the life, it's like letting down. And I think when she let down, then it was the time that she could also say, "No, I'm ready to go on." I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes. While you were making the film, besides that she was old, was she sick or she was kind of healthy? She was not in. Was she sick or she was healthy? She was healthy while you were making the film, besides being old, and she didn't suffer from pain.
She was in palliative care. Okay, she was considered as ending life patient, and she received morphine. But she started to feel better. So they took at the end the morphine, and she could live for 2 years in a balanced way. But in the beginning, she was considered by the healthcare as a person who is at the end of her life. And the people who came to take care of her told me, she would receive morphine and then it would be worse and worse and worse. And she said, no, it's going to be better and better and better. And she was right. And it's interesting because there were 2 persons who took care of her for the cleaning, and one every day. And one was very optimistic and one was pessimistic. And we always pray that the optimistic guy came. And that's the one who came for 2 years. Because it's important when you're optimistic. And also, if I see that that you're still sitting, so I can go on to talk if you want. So I'll tell you just a little anecdote, okay? In the beginning, when my mother was really ill, the Jewish doctor was on holiday. Then the one who took care of him was also in holiday, Jewish. So the third doctor was a Christian, a Czech person who spoke Polish, and she came to see my mother, and then she came back and she said, I have a problem, because in Jewish religion, you cannot interfere if a person is going to die. But I have some energy, So I looked to my brother and said, okay, I know what he thinks. She's a charlatan. And I said to this doctor, you know, if you want to stay with my mother a little bit, and she went for 10 minutes. I don't know what she did to her. But from this day, she also remained for 2 more years alive. So, you know, I don't know if the doctor helped, if she's a shaman or she's a sorcerer. But it's interesting. I think all of us gave her during those years some good vibes, good energies, good care, love, and this is something that all of us can give to relatives who are, you know, in this situation. But she was considered very ill. But you know, miracles can happen in life, no? If we believe in them.
We have time for one more question here from the audience.
Last question.
Thank you so much. It was just wonderful. Interestingly, my great-great-grandparents came from Lodz. Yeah. The question, while I was watching the film, I was thinking about my relationship with my own son. And we have a good relationship, but we really don't know each other that well. But I was also thinking that, and here's a question, would she have stayed alive for 2 years if you had not been there almost every day with her?
I think we are 3 brothers, and each of us gave what he had. So I think, you know, in a very humble way, every one of us did the best we can. But I'm sure that I think also her character, being, you know, Holocaust survivor and fighting was like in the film. She said, "I'm always fighting for something. There is always something to fight." Maybe it's all kind of things interfere and give some positive thing. But if you agree, I take my guitar, okay? And maybe before we separate, say goodbye, I will sing you a song. Is that okay?
In fact, I was actually going to ask you if you would. I would ask you if you were going to sing us.
That you love from Jacques Brel that you like?
Could you sing the song that you? I mean, I don't know. I wanted to hear you sing the song that you sang to your mother about "Sing with Me."
Okay.
And no.
Un chant d'amour de tous les jours qui rend heureux des gens comme toi, des gens comme moi. Non, ça ne se pas. À chaque point de vue, well, as you see, this is what I sang to my mother a few years ago. And now it's for you that I'm singing, and I would like to thank you for being in New York, looking at Twilight of life. So I wish you also a very good life, because I think you deserve it, and we all deserve it, wherever we live. So thank you for you.
Thank you, Sylvain. Stay with us for a moment. Stay with us. First of all, this is, of course, being made into a Broadway musical that you can all get your tickets to as a pre-sale. Really, Broadway will make anything into a musical these days. First of all, I want to thank everybody. David, thank you so much for being here, Rabbi. There's a lot of people who have many more questions, and Sylvain, if you'll agree, we are having a reception right across the hall, and we have a computer set up in that room too, so you won't be able to touch the food or the wine, but if people want to talk to you a little further, we'll, if we could continue Skyping with you, we're just going to move into the other room. To get to the other room, since there's a huge crowd actually waiting outside